Welcome back to Preachin' Preacher, episode 7, called He Gone. We lead off from last week where Preacher, he told Eugene to go to hell, and Eugene went to hell. So Preacher seems all shocked and speechless with what he did to Eugene. Meanwhile, Cass saw the whole thing without Preacher really noticing. So church begins, and we see Sheriff Root sitting at the pew, and Eugene isn't there. He seems all confused.
After the sermon, we see the sheriff asking around to see if anyone's seen Eugene. The camera pans out to where Eugene disappeared in the previous episode. The mood switches over when we see King Cannon sitting at his desk listening to animals being slaughtered, which he so often does.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. We see flashbacks in this episode of Jesse and Tulip when they're kids. We get to see a little bit more about Tulip's life, like her drunk uncle passing out in front of the house, and like he gets his pants stolen by kids. So she's all like chasing him down and like retrieves the pants. But meanwhile, like people like neighbors and like people driving by all give her dirty looks.
Just like shaking their head.
Yeah, like she's trash and they're ashamed of her.
Preacher's now busy as hell and everyone's making like appointments to meet up with him. Cass comes clean that he saw Jesse banish Eugene. Tulip and Cass end up talking about what they did in the previous episode, and
Fucking in the car.
Tulip kind of makes it seem like it was nothing, or it never even happened.
Yeah, we also find out Cass, he hasn't told Preacher that he's a vampire, and Tulip basically says Jesse won't forgive him for being a vampire. Cass thinks otherwise. So they discuss Jesse, and we find out that Jesse really loves John Wayne. He thinks he's the best in shit's sunshine. So Cass reveals to Tulip that Jesse can make you do things. She doesn't really believe him, though.
No. So there's more flashbacks of young Jesse living with Tulip, and they're like kids, so that shows how long they've really known each other. While Jesse's sleeping, Tulip comes in and like wakes him up, telling him to promise him to be friends, till the end of time.
Yeah.
Next we see Tulip being taken away by like, what was it?
Social workers.
Social workers, yeah.
I'm not sure who it was, yeah.
Jesse ends up freaking out, and like Jesse's father's the reason why Tulip ended up having to leave. And his reason was because she was an O'Hare, O'Hare being her last name in case you don't know. And O'Hare's trouble follows them.
Yeah, trouble follows the O'Hares. Jesse then prays for Tulip to be okay and for God to kill his dad, send him straight to hell.
That's heavy stuff.
Pretty heavy shit, yeah. So it cuts back to King Cannon. He comes to see Jesse and talks with him about doing a terrible thing. He let his family down in their business. So King Cannon brings up the deal that they made previously. He claims that he isn't a religious man now. So basically he wants to take the church land because he feels he won the deal.
Yeah, strange stuff. He didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
Cass, Tulip, Emily, and Jesse are sitting around having dinner. Jesse's kind of all distant. Tulip ends up calling him out on it. The sheriff comes in like right away and he's asking if anyone's seen Eugene. He mentions that Eugene was going to wanted to see the preacher before church.
Yeah.
Jesse kind of lies about it. And then Emily kind of steps up saying, well, she did see Eugene, but then she ends up lying about it too, saying that he ended up leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like she's suspecting something with the preacher, though, kind of through it. Anyways, once Sheriff Root leaves, Cass basically busts Preacher in the face with a fire hydrant. He's basically pissed off at him for what he did to Eugene. Lying to Sheriff Root and shit too. When discussing Eugene, Preacher really doesn't seem to give a shit. He just kind of like says like, what can I do? We do figure out more about why Tracy Loach and the chick that's in the coma and Eugene are like both fucked up. And I guess he basically calls Eugene a sinner for what he did and pretty much says he's getting what he deserves.
Yeah, it's a bit different than the comic book in that sense, but it actually works pretty good with all the characters they introduced. Cass wants Jesse to give Genesis back because of everything that's going on. Jesse still won't give it back. Cass calls Jesse out, calling him an asshole and stuff, and tells him that he is a vampire and that only Jesse can save him if he chooses to. And then Cass takes off his shirt and walks into the sun.
Yeah, it's actually frying.
It was actually pretty intense because it was instantly bubbling up, whatever.
Lighting on fire.
It was like, oh shit.
Yeah, he just went up.
So next scene, we then see Jesse walking in, freaking out to Tulip, saying like, "You knew he was a vampire."
Yeah.
Or did you know he was a vampire? And then she just kind of gets pissed off, calls him a dick, and storms out.
Yeah, he was all like, "Why are you here?"
Oh yeah.
And then she's like, "You dick." Yeah. So meanwhile, we find out Emily, she seems to really like Jesse, and it seems she has his back, I guess. Another flashback at Jesse as a kid. He's hiding under his bed, and you hear like a bunch of men breaking into the house and like beating the shit out of his father. And then it kind of cuts to, and like, you know, he's all on his knees, and his dad's got a fucking gun to his head. If you read the comic, you should know who these guys are. I'm not going to ruin anything though. Basically, they shoot him dead, but before that, he tells Jesse to be one of the good guys because there's too many of the bad.
We cut back to the preacher busting up the floor where Eugene was standing, and he's yelling like into the dirt all demonically, like, "Come back, come back."
Yeah, his Genesis voice.
At the same time, we also see Kincannon and a bunch of stuff, him like on like a bulldozer, and they're all like headed towards the church with like all of his men.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
So it's kind of like gives you like a suspenseful ending.
Yeah, yeah. This episode, though, the ending, it really left me desperately wanting to see what happens next. I mean, the hook at the end of this was great. Like, I want to see what's going to happen with the bulldozer rolling up to the
just
church.
to see what happens next.
Yeah.
The flashbacks with Tulip and Jesse were nice because it actually shows like more about his character.
Yeah, more character development, shows their past.
Really good story building.
Yeah, it was a good story building episode. It definitely built a lot of story. It's leading up to something big, which is nice. Anyways, this has been another Preachin' Preacher. Check out all our other shit. We got our Bangerz and Mash
podcast,
yeah.
SoundCloud and iTunes, and then check out Bangerz and Mash Live, which has all of our
gaming channel, basically live streams
and stuff.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And I guess that's it. Like and subscribe, and until next time, fuck off.